chosen one. Listen carefully. You were never ordinary. From the foundations of time, before your body was formed in your mother's womb, heaven had already spoken your name. You were set apart in the secret places of eternity, marked not just with a future, but with divine assignment. You are not a product of coincidence. You are the result of intention, of God's eternal plan, echoing through the ages. There was a moment before stars were hung in the sky, before oceans kissed the earth, when heaven held its breath. In that sacred moment, your spirit was whispered into existence, not as an afterthought, not as a background character in someone else's story, but as a chosen vessel, set apart in heaven's blueprint. You are not like the rest. And that's not something to hide from, it's something to rise into. You were never designed to blend in. You were designed to disrupt. The moment you stepped into this world, even unaware, the spiritual realm recognized you. And just as heaven saw you, so did hell. That's why your life has felt different. That's why your path has been set apart. God put a seal on you that cannot be erased. And every hardship you've walked through wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You may not remember that heavenly moment, but your soul does. It's why you've always felt the pull, the ache, the holy discomfort that refuses to let you settle. Even in rooms filled with people, you felt the loneliness of being misunderstood. Even in seasons of success, there was a hunger for something more. That is the sound of your spirit recalling its origin. You were born from the breath of the Almighty, and nothing about your life is casual. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 139, verse 16, "Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." Let that truth shake you. Your days were not randomly assigned. They were written. Your story isn't being created as you go, it's being revealed. You were set apart long before the clock of earth began ticking, and if heaven saw fit to call you by name, then who are you to doubt your value now? You need to understand this. Heaven doesn't make duplicates. You are not a recycled version of someone else. You are a singular, divine expression, fearfully and wonderfully made. You've survived too much to be average. You've endured too long to be invisible. Something in you knows you're here for more, and that something is the echo of your heavenly origin. When others walked away, God stood closer. When doors slammed shut, it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. You weren't meant to walk through just any door. You were meant to walk through the right one, the one tied to your call. And make no mistake, the enemy tried to abort your mission before you even understood it. The confusion, the trauma, the warfare, it wasn't about your past. It was about your potential. But the one who set you apart also shielded you. Yes, you've made mistakes, but nothing can cancel what God has declared. The blueprint remains. The promise still breathes. You are not too late. The call of God is irrevocable. If you're hearing these words now, it's because heaven is awakening you to your moment. This is divine intervention. Heaven paused everything to remind you. You were chosen before time began. You may have been overlooked by people, but not by God. Every delay has been divine. Every silence was sacred. Now the stirring inside you is confirmation that you're about to walk into what was already written. This is your wake-up call. Your name was known before your voice formed. You were an answer in heaven before you ever became a question on earth. What heaven starts, no demon in hell can stop. So, stand up in your spirit. Wipe the dust off your identity. This is not the season to shrink. The same God who designed your journey is calling you deeper now. Can you hear it? That holy summons urging you not to settle, not to quit, not to forget who you are. If something in you feels the pull of this moment, act on it. This isn't entertainment. It's activation. You're not here by mistake. You're here because God is aligning you with your divine moment. Subscribe now. Like, comment, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. If your spirit bears witness, drop this number in the comments as a prophetic act of agreement. 999. Chosen one. Before you ever had a name on this earth, you were known by heaven, not casually, but intimately, not vague, but with holy precision. Your purpose, your timing, your DNA. It was all written into a scroll sealed in the throne room of God. The moment your spirit was imagined in the mind of the Almighty, your journey was not just blessed, it was ordained. This is why you've never quite fit. This is why your soul has longed for something beyond the surface of life. Because buried deep within you is a divine memory, an echo of what was written before you were born. You are not merely a product of your environment, you are the result of a divine assignment. Your spirit was sent into time from the timeless. Every chosen one carries a scroll. It's not fiction. It's not symbolic. It's spiritual truth. You were designed with precision. Heaven has never winged it with you. What looks random to people is deliberate in eternity. The very things you tried to shake, the burdens you carry, the sensitivities that overwhelm you, the passion that never dies are signals, reminders, holy confirmations of a scroll that still speaks your name. It wasn't just your gifts that were written. It was your path, your breaking, your becoming. Heaven didn't just assign you glory, it foresaw the battles you'd face. And still, you were chosen. Still, you were released. Because the scroll written about you wasn't just written in power, it was sealed in grace. And yet, the enemy also sees scrolls. He doesn't know every word, but he recognizes marks. And when he sees someone who carries prophetic fire, or healing in their hands, or deliverance in their voice, he launches war. That's why your attack didn't start when you grew into your gifts. It started in infancy, before you understood what you carried. Hell tried to bury it. You've wrestled with identity not because you're confused, but because you are dangerous. Your confusion has been spiritual warfare, not self-doubt. And through every season where you almost gave up, God kept the scrolls secure. No sin you committed, no detour you took, no trauma you endured has erased a single word from what was written. Your scroll is still active, still sealed with purpose, and it still calls to your soul. Heaven declares through the prophet in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 2, verse 9 and 10. Then I looked, and I saw a hand stretched out to me. In it was a scroll with words of lament, mourning, and woe. Do you see it? The scroll is not always filled with light things. Sometimes it holds the weight of what you've had to carry. Mourning, lament, deep groanings of the soul. And still, it's holy. Still, it's heaven's will. Your pain wasn't outside the scroll. It was part of what would produce your power. Some of the greatest anointing is birthed through pages soaked in tears. You don't get oil without pressing. You don't get true clarity without walking through fog. What you thought were detours were actually divine alignments, setting you on a path where your life would carry more weight, not less. You weren't delayed. You were deepened. When you wonder why the weight of your journey feels so intense, it's because heaven is serious about what's written. The scroll is not activated through comfort. It's activated through surrender. You've been taught to strive, but now heaven is calling you to yield. Stop fighting what's being birthed in you. God doesn't need your performance. He needs your agreement. Because when you say yes to the scroll, doors open that no man can close. When you yield to what was written, you step into divine protection. Divine connexion. Divine acceleration. It doesn't mean it'll be easy, but it does mean it will be exact, precise, powerful. So when you feel the tension, the warfare, the spiritual pressure rising, it's not just life happening. It's the scroll being stirred. God is awakening what has long been dormant in you. The dreams you put on the shelf. The words spoken over you in secret. The visions you stopped believing, for all of it is connected to what was written before you were born. You are not behind. You are right on time. You're just now beginning to remember the truth. Heaven never forgot. You were written for this. You've wondered why life has hit you differently than others. Why the pain came early. Why the spiritual warfare started before you even had language for it. Why things that break others only seem to shape you. It's not random. It's not karma. It's not bad luck. It's because something about you was seen in the spirit realm before you ever opened your eyes. The darkness marked you because heaven marked you first. You were identified as dangerous, not because of your family name, not because of what you've achieved, but because of the light you carry and the future that's already been written. Hell doesn't attack what doesn't threaten it. And make no mistake, you are a threat. That's why you were targeted in childhood. That's why you were misunderstood by those who should have protected you. That's why your confidence was under constant attack. The enemy was trying to distort your identity before you could walk in your destiny. Because if you ever understood who you really are, if you ever saw yourself the way heaven sees you, it would be over for him. Even in your darkest moments, something in you refused to fully die. You may have been down, but never destroyed. You may have questioned your worth, but something deep down would not let go of hope. That was not you being strong. That was the Spirit of God preserving what he called his own. The enemy tried to bury you before you bloomed. He tried to use heartbreak as your end. But what he didn't know was that the soil he tried to use for your burial became the very ground for your resurrection. As spoken by the prophet in the book of Isaiah, chapter 42, verse 31, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." And that's not poetic. That's prophetic. That verse describes your survival, your rebirth, the strength you've had to borrow, the endurance you didn't know you possessed. You are the one who rose again and again and again. You've walked through places that should have left you bitter, but instead you became broken open, and that's where your oil began to flow. You fought silent battles with demons no one saw. And now the anointing on your life has weight. Not the kind that's visible, but the kind that shakes atmospheres. The kind that stirs conviction. The kind that calls others higher just by existing. That's why you feel so much. That's why rest is war for you. That's why you walk into a room and feel the shift before anyone says a word. You were not made for surface living. You were made to discern, to battle, to intercede. Your calling demands it. Your scroll requires it. You don't need to be loud to be lethal. Even your presence carries weight. You disrupt the plans of darkness just by walking in alignment, and the enemy knows it. But now it's time for you to know it too. You're not meant to live in fear of your own calling. You're not meant to water yourself down to make others comfortable. You're not meant to apologize for being intense, focused, prophetic, discerning, or different. You are not too much. You are exactly right for the assignment on your life. This is the season where you stop hiding, where you silence the inner critic, where you confront the lie that tells you you're not worthy. Because the truth is, you were called before anyone had an opinion about you. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be lit, to carry fire, to walk in power, to break cycles, to reveal Jesus in a way that causes heaven to rejoice and hell to tremble. So if you feel this deep in your bones, if your spirit is burning with confirmation, then speak it out loud. Comment, "I hear you." Why? Because silence is agreement with the enemy. But declaration is agreement with heaven. When you type those words, it's not about algorithms. It's about alignment. You're telling the spirit realm, I recognize who I am. I receive the call. I will not retreat. And that simple act of obedience, it unlocks momentum. It pushes back the clouds. It activates angelic warfare on your behalf. Because God responds to the yes in your spirit, even when it's whispered. You are not ordinary. You are not fragile. You are a weapon in the hands of God. You were hidden, not forgotten. Heaven tucked you away, not to punish you, but to preserve you. Because what's placed in public too soon is always vulnerable to contamination. You weren't meant to be exposed before your roots ran deep. And though it felt like isolation, it was actually insulation. You were not abandoned. You were being protected for a set time. Think back. There were moments when everything in you longed to be seen, to be heard, to be used. You had passion, but no platform. Fire, but no direction. And heaven stayed silent. Not because you were disqualified, but because you were still being formed. God hides what He's preparing. He conceals what He's refining. Every hidden season is evidence that there's something within you worth protecting. Others seemed to rise while you sat in silence. People around you were being elevated, affirmed, applauded. But your phone stayed quiet. Your gift stayed tucked away. And your heart wondered, did heaven forget me? The answer is no. Heaven was hiding you to heal you before using you. God will never launch what He hasn't built to last. And you, chosen one, were never designed to be a temporary spark. You were crafted to be a sustained flame. And so He took His time. He broke what needed breaking, stripped what needed stripping. He removed the counterfeit so that what's real could rise. In the hidden place, you weren't just being kept from others, you were being confronted by yourself. You had to face the voices, the patterns, the trauma that would have sabotaged your destiny had God released you too soon. The wilderness wasn't wasted. The silence wasn't punishment. It was surgery. There are things in you now, strength, resilience, wisdom that only exist because of what you walked through in the shadows. You didn't get those on the mountaintop. You received them in the cave, in the quiet, in the stretch where no one clapped, no one called, no one saw you, but God did. The apostle writes in Ephesians, chapter 2, verse 10, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." None. He prepared you in advance, not in front of men, in advance, not in applause. In hiddenness, there's a deep work that only gets done when the lights are off, when the crowd is gone, when it's just you and God and the sound of your own breath wrestling in the dark. That's where the roots go deep. That's where the call becomes more than a concept. It becomes a conviction. You're different now. You may not see it at first glance, but something in you has shifted. You don't crave what you used to crave. You don't move the way you used to move. The hidden season trained you. It taught you how to wait, how to worship, how to discern what's real from what just looks spiritual. You've been built in silence, and that kind of building is unshakable. Don't resent the years of obscurity. They were sacred. God was writing character in you, writing stability, writing fire that doesn't flicker under pressure. You were not being punished. You were being prepared. You were hidden. Yes, but also sharpened. You were overlooked by men, but hand-carved by God Himself. And now the stirring is different. You feel it, don't you? That something is shifting, that the veil is thinning, that the call is no longer distant, it's near. You are standing at the edge of release. But don't rush out of hiding too soon. Even Jesus spent 30 years in quiet before stepping into public ministry. 30 years of hiddenness for 3 years of impact. Heaven is not in a hurry. Your timing is not broken. Your progress is not late. The longer the preparation, the heavier the glory. And the weight you're about to carry would have crushed the version of you from 5 years ago. But now, after all the refining, all the stripping, all the healing, you're becoming the kind of vessel that can actually handle what's coming. So don't despise your cave. Don't hate the seasons where no one returned your call. No one affirmed your gift. No one seemed to care that you existed. Those seasons were divine training grounds. God was watching how you responded when you had no audience, how you worshipped without a stage, how you prayed when no one said, Amen. And it was there, in that sacred invisibility, that heaven started to trust you, because it's not the spotlight that proves your anointing. It's the hidden place and chosen one. You've been faithful there. You stayed when you could have walked away. You stayed when no one was watching. And now, the hidden work is about to reveal its fruit. Chosen one. If you've ever wondered why your life has felt like a relentless battlefield, why every step forward seemed to provoke another attack, it's because there has been a war over your identity since the moment you were conceived. Before you even knew what calling meant, the enemy saw the mark of God on your life and moved swiftly to confuse, distort, and delay your awakening. This war wasn't about your personality. It wasn't about your appearance, your upbringing, or even your mistakes. It was, and still is, about your identity. Because if the enemy can twist how you see yourself, he can neutralize what God has called you to release. Your entire life has been a battle of narrative. What heaven wrote in truth, hell has tried to rewrite in lies. God said you're chosen. The enemy said you're forgotten. God said you're anointed. The enemy said you're unqualified. God said you're holy. The enemy said you're broken beyond repair. The battlefield has always been your mind, because the enemy knows he cannot touch the scroll written in heaven. So he attacks your belief in it. If you stop believing it, you stop walking in it. And that's what hell wants, chosen ones who are too weary, too wounded, too unsure to rise into who they truly are. But you are still here, and that alone is victory. The psalmist proclaimed in the book of Psalms, chapter 23, verse 4, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff. They comfort me." Oh, you've walked through valleys others didn't survive. You've carried burdens that should have crushed you, but God's hand has been upon you the whole time, guiding, shielding, restoring. And though the enemy thought the warfare would break you, it only built you. The war for your identity has refined your discernment. You no longer believe everything spoken over you. You've learned to test every voice, to measure every opportunity against the spirit of the scroll. You've learned how to walk through rejection without absorbing it, how to stand in faith even when fear breathes down your neck. This is what the war was always meant to kill, but God used it to sharpen you instead. What you've survived is not normal, and that's the point. You are not normal. The level of resistance reveals the level of your calling. This is not cliché, it's reality. The enemy does not wage war against what does not threaten him, and your very presence is disruptive. The light in you disturbs the darkness in others. You were born to shake systems, to break generational chains, to call people out of slumber. That kind of calling invites resistance. So the question becomes not, why did the war happen, but who are you becoming because of it? Look back. See what's been forged in the fire: endurance, discernment, spiritual authority. You no longer move emotionally, you move prophetically. You no longer need applause, you need confirmation. You no longer chase platforms, you chase presence. That is what identity warfare produces: unshakable clarity. And chosen one. The world needs you clear. Heaven needs you clear. Because in this hour, blurry believers are being silenced, but those with holy conviction are rising. You're not coming out of this war empty-handed. You're coming out crowned. That's why it's not just about you. This message isn't just a reminder, it's a mirror. Look at what you've survived. Look at who you're becoming. Now imagine how many others need to hear this truth too. Imagine how many are still in the war you've been walking through. If this is resonating, if something in your spirit is burning with recognition, then let this be the moment you not only receive, but release. Share this message with someone you know is in the fight. There's someone waiting to hear what you just heard. They don't need another self-help quote. They need revelation. They need what you carry. Click that like button if you know this is for you. It's not about vanity, it's about visibility. The more people engage, the more souls can be reached. Subscribe to stay aligned with these prophetic downloads. Don't just scroll and forget. Stay connected. There is more coming, and you don't want to miss the next release. And if you feel stirred to go deeper, if you want to sow into this work, not out of pressure but out of agreement, there are ways to give. Not because God needs it, but because when you honor what feeds your soul, something unlocks. There's a link available for those who feel led. Let your seed be prophetic. Let it speak where your words can't. But whether you give, like, share, or simply sit in the weight of this word, know this: The war didn't win. You're still standing. And that means the scroll is still active. You are not who the enemy said you were. You are who heaven has always declared you to be. Chosen, set apart, unstoppable, chosen one. There is something about you that cannot be explained by logic. You walk into rooms and carry a presence that silences chaos without trying. You shift atmospheres without raising your voice. People may not always understand you, but they feel you. And that's because in the spirit realm, you are already marked. You don't wear a crown on your head. You wear one in the spirit. And though it's invisible to the natural eye, it is recognized by both angels and demons. Your identity has been sealed by heaven, and no one can cancel what God has called. This is why you've always wrestled with identity, because hell saw your mark before you ever did. You are not the insecure child the world tried to raise. You are not the confused soul life tried to fracture. You are not the failure your past keeps accusing you of. You are God's property, His vessel, His chosen one, and the spiritual realm knows it. When you walk into a space, you don't just enter physically, you enter prophetically. The scroll written about your life shows up with you. This is why the enemy doesn't wait until you're successful to fight you. He fights you when you're still searching, still healing, still unsure, because he wants to stop you before the scroll fully awakens. What you carry is disruptive. You can't help but expose darkness, even without trying. Your spirit convicts those who are pretending. Your discernment frustrates those who manipulate. You don't play church, you carry kingdom, and that makes you a threat. It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind." Oh, do you understand what that means? That even your sanity is spiritual warfare. Your mind has been through things that should have left it shattered. But God didn't just preserve your life, He preserved your mind. And that kind of preservation is evidence you've walked through spiritual crossfire and still came out stable. Chosen one. You've been through fire that left others bitter, but you came out refined. You've been through delays that could have broken your belief, but you held on. That kind of resilience isn't natural. It's spiritual. You were marked for this. And here's what you need to know. Your identity isn't evolving, it's being revealed. Who you truly are has been hidden beneath years of trauma, fear, and false labels. But now God is peeling back the layers. He's removing what life placed on you, so what He placed in you can rise. This is why old relationships are falling away. Why familiar places feel foreign. Why you no longer have peace in circles that once comforted you. Because your spirit is ascending. And anything not tied to your identity must be cut. You can't walk in power while still trying to please people who are threatened by it. There's a cost to being chosen, but the reward is greater than the pain. Because once you start walking in your true identity, there's no turning back. The world may not celebrate you, but heaven will back you. You may be misunderstood on earth, but you are known in heaven, and that kind of identity cannot be shaken. Don't let the enemy convince you that you're unworthy. He's terrified of you discovering the truth. He knows if you ever fully believe what God has spoken over you, every lie will collapse. Every generational curse will lose grip. Every room you enter will shift. Because when a chosen one wakes up, the atmosphere does too. And you, beloved, are waking up. You're beginning to see yourself rightly, not through the filter of shame, not through the wounds of rejection, but through the lens of heaven. And heaven sees royalty, a warrior, a light bearer, a gatekeeper, a key holder. That's why hell fought you. That's why life tried to break you. That's why your mind has been the battlefield, because identity is the birthplace of authority. So let today be a line in the sand. No more shrinking, no more apologizing, no more second-guessing what's already written. You are chosen, you are marked, you are known. And if this word resonates, if your spirit is stirring and your eyes are tearing, it's not emotion, it's confirmation. You're not just hearing something new, you're remembering something eternal. Comment 444. This number isn't random. It's a prophetic declaration of alignment body. 2. Soul and spirit. It means heaven is bringing things into divine order. It means your identity is syncing with your assignment. Drop that number in the comments if you feel this word pulling something out of you. You're not just reacting, you're responding. Chosen one. The veil is thinning. The fog is lifting. Your name is still on the scroll, and your identity is no longer up for debate. Every no that broke your heart was heaven's way of saying, not that one. Every rejection that made you question your worth was a redirection. Every door that refused to open, every hand that pulled away, every silence that stung your soul, none of it was random. You thought you were losing, but you were being led. Chosen one. Heaven doesn't shut doors out of cruelty. Heaven shuts doors out of mercy. Rejection was not the end of your destiny. It was the rerouting of it. You see, there are things that look good to the natural eye, but are fatal to your spirit. People who look promising, but carry hidden compromise. Places that feel comfortable, but would have stifled your growth. God knows what you do not. And when He says no, it's not punishment, it's protection. The job you didn't get, you would have lost yourself in it. The relationship that ended, it was sent to distract you. The opportunity that collapsed, it would have pulled you into performance instead of purpose. But of course, it didn't feel like protection at the time. It felt like reaction, like abandonment, like failure, because your human eyes could only see the loss, not the trap you just avoided. And that's where faith had to rise. You've cried over things you now thank God didn't work out. You've looked back at certain rooms and realized you didn't belong, not because you weren't good enough, but because you were too aligned to fit in places built on compromise. That's what it means to be chosen. It's not just about being called, it's about being kept. The truth is, rejection isn't the end of your story. It's the proof that there's a bigger one unfolding. When God closes a door, He's not removing your future, He's refining it, narrowing your path to make sure you arrive at the right place, at the right time, with the right version of yourself. The Apostle Paul wrote in Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Even your disappointments have been working for your good. Even the silent seasons, even the betrayals. They've all been used by the hand of a strategic God who writes nothing by accident and wastes nothing in your journey. There is no pain without purpose in the hands of heaven. You weren't forgotten. You were filtered. God removed what could not go with you. Not because you weren't worthy of love, but because your calling requires clarity. The higher the calling, the smaller the circle. And though it hurt, your soul knows it was necessary. You don't need a crowd, you need covenant. You don't need applause, you need alignment. That's why God didn't let you be accepted by everyone. Because if you had been embraced by the wrong systems, you would have stayed small to survive. And you were never created to shrink. You are not here to be tolerated. You are here to be sent. And the ones who reject you are often the confirmation that you are walking into something bigger than they can carry. Sometimes, rejection is a compliment your spirit receives before your mind can process it. Even Jesus was rejected by the very people he came to save. He was not discredited because he was wrong. He was discredited because he carried too much truth. And when truth walks into a room, least get nervous. You've made people uncomfortable not because you're flawed, but because you remind them of what they've ignored in themselves. Rejection was the refiner. It burned away the need to be accepted. It taught you that approval cannot be the goal. Obedience must be. You've learned how to walk forward without applause. You've learned how to believe the promise even when no one claps for you. That's power. That's maturity. That's authority. So no, you're not behind. You're not forgotten. You're not unwanted. You are being delivered from the temptation to settle. You are being positioned for purpose. And heaven is making sure you don't waste your anointing trying to convince people who were never meant to carry it. Chosen one. Everything that fell away had to. Everything that said no was God saying, wait. And everything that broke you was used to build you. Rejection was never the end. It was the beginning of your rerouting. You are still on track. You are still called. You are still covered. And the next door, it won't just open, it will recognize you. Chosen one. You weren't built in comfort. You were built in the breaking. It wasn't the good seasons that shaped your authority. It was the ones that nearly destroyed you. It was the nights you cried out to God in silence. The seasons you felt completely alone. The moments when your strength collapsed and there was nothing left but surrender. That is where the power formed. You see, heaven doesn't train warriors on stages. It trains them in caves, in quiet, in suffering, in seasons where it seems like nothing is happening, when in truth, everything is happening. You were broken to become, broken to awaken, broken to release what couldn't stay and receive what must remain. And though it felt like pain, it was really preparation. You thought you were falling apart, but you were falling into purpose. The enemy thought the breaking would make you bitter. He thought you'd walk away from God, question your worth, disown your call, and maybe, for a moment, you did. But something inside you kept holding on, kept whispering, there's more. And that whisper was not your imagination. It was the voice of the Spirit calling you back to the blueprint. There's a reason you've carried so much. A reason why your battles have felt heavier than those around you. It's because the oil on your life doesn't come cheap. You've been pressed, crushed, misunderstood, pushed aside. But what came out of you was not weakness. It was oil. Oil only flows from what is crushed. And what is crushed in private often carries weight in public. Scripture reveals in the second letter to Corinthians, chapter 1, verse 5, for just as we share abundantly in the sufferings of Christ, so also our comfort abounds through Christ. You have shared in the suffering, but there is a comfort now, rising, a strength that no one sees coming. You've endured the darkness, and now your light won't flicker when the wind blows. There are parts of you that only exist because of what you've survived. Depths of discernment that didn't come from books, but from brokenness. Compassion that wasn't learned in a classroom, but in a storm. You know how to see what others overlook. You know how to stand when others flee. Because your faith wasn't handed to you, it was forged in fire. And no, you're not perfect. You've had moments of doubt, fear, and frustration. But even then, God never let you drown. There's a reason the enemy tried to flood your life with pain, because he was terrified of what would emerge once you healed. The pain was deep because the purpose is deeper. And now, that deep work is about to speak for itself. You're not the same person you were 5 years ago. You don't see things the same. You don't respond the same. You don't carry the same. Why? Because the breaking matured you. The crushing humbled you. And that humility is what heaven can trust. You've learned how to hear God in the silence. You've learned how to walk when no one is cheering. You've learned how to bleed and still bless. That's a testimony. That's evidence. That's what separates the called from the chosen. And it's important you know this. Nothing you went through was wasted. Not one tear. Not one setback. Not one betrayal. All of it has been woven into the oil. And the oil on your life will do what your words never could. It will break yokes. It will bring healing. It will confirm to others what you had to learn the hard way. God does not abandon his own. So when people look at you and wonder how you're still standing, how you're still smiling, how you still believe, let them wonder. What they see now is the fruit. What they don't see is the field of brokenness that had to be plowed first. But heaven sees it. And heaven remembers every moment you stayed faithful when it would have been easier to walk away. That's why the promotion coming to you won't be delayed. It's not about success. It's about trust. God knows he can trust you with weight. He can trust you with influence. He can trust you with people's hearts. Because you were broken for the assignment, not broken by it. Chosen one. The breaking didn't ruin you, it revealed you. And what was revealed in pain will now be used in power. This next season won't require you to prove yourself, only to walk boldly in what's already been formed through fire. You've always known there was something different about you. Not just in personality or preference, but something deeper, something unexplainable. You've tried to live like everyone else. You've tried to silence the voice inside you that says, "This isn't your path." But no matter how far you drifted, no matter how hard you tried to fit in, there was a divine unrest that refused to die. Because you were not created to blend in. You were created to break the mold. And that tension you feel when you try to be normal, that's your spirit rejecting counterfeit alignment. That's heaven pulling you back into the scroll. You weren't built to mimic. You were wired to awaken. From the outside, it might have looked like rebellion, like stubbornness, like being too intense. But what others couldn't see is that you were protecting something inside of you that didn't belong to this world. Something sacred, something set apart. You've never been able to fully compromise. You've tried, but it made your soul sick. You've sat in rooms and smiled, all while your spirit screamed that you didn't belong. That's not arrogance, it's awareness. You were built to disturb systems of complacency. You were born to confront what others are content to ignore. You carry holy disruption in your DNA. That's why friendships have fallen apart. Why you've outgrown conversations, habits, circles. It's not pride, it's purpose. Your growth made you incompatible with environments that prefer slumber over awakening. And the more you grow in truth, the more you'll be misunderstood by those who fear it. The Apostle Paul wrote in Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 11, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. Chosen one. Your mere existence exposes what others hide. You don't even have to say much. Your presence speaks. You walk into a space, and conviction enters with you, not because you're perfect, but because you're aligned, and alignment carries authority. You disrupt spiritual laziness. You awaken what's been sleeping. You stir up what's been ignored. And yes, it's exhausting. Yes, it's lonely. But no, it's not a mistake. God designed you to walk as a living alarm clock, someone who calls people to rise when the world tells them to stay asleep. And that role will always be misunderstood by those who worship comfort. But don't let misunderstanding make you mute. Don't let rejection cause you to water down what you carry. You don't need to be loud, you just need to be clear. Clear in your identity. Clear in your conviction. Clear in your assignment. Because you don't need everyone to understand you. You just need heaven to back you. And it does. The world is full of voices trying to sound deep, trying to look anointed. But when someone truly carries weight, you can feel it. And when you walk into a room, it feels like something shifted. That's not ego. That's anointing. And you didn't earn it. It was placed on you. Protected in you. Preserved through fire. You were born to disrupt cycles of bondage, to confront silence with truth, to call people out of darkness not with a microphone, but with your very existence. That's why you've felt out of place your whole life. That's why mediocrity makes you nauseous. That's why you've never been able to play small for too long. Because deep inside, you've always known you weren't born to fit. You were born to flip the tables. So stop apologizing. Stop shrinking. Stop waiting for confirmation from people who are intimidated by your clarity. You don't need their applause, you need their distance. You don't need to explain the oil you carry. The oil will speak. The fruit will speak. Your fire will speak. And if these words are hitting something in you, if your chest is tight, your hands are shaking, your eyes are welling up, that's the Spirit bearing witness. You know exactly who you are. You've just been trying to survive among people who were never meant to understand you. But this is your moment to rise above the noise and say, comment, I disturb darkness. Say it not to be seen, but to seal it. Say it because you're done pretending. Say it because your presence was never meant to blend in, it was meant to confront. You weren't created to blend in with the background. You were created to be the flame that causes others to remember the fire in themselves. Chosen one. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs the original. You awake, aligned, and unapologetically lit. The time of divine delay is ending. You've been in a holding pattern, waiting for clarity, waiting for confirmation, waiting for the door to open, the right moment to speak, the signal that says, now. And for a long time, it's felt like silence, like stillness, like you're circling the same mountain over and over again, wondering if you missed it. But hear this now, you didn't miss anything. You were being held for heaven's timing. The assignments over your life were never cancelled. They were preserved. God doesn't release heavy callings lightly. He doesn't send warriors into war without full armor. And so, while you thought you were being overlooked, You were being outfitted. While you thought nothing was happening, your roots were being driven deeper, because shallow roots can't hold weight. And what's about to rest on your life? It requires depth. You've been prepared for this exact moment in time. Not a second early, not a second late. We hear from the Lord in Revelation, chapter 3, verse 8. See, I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. And that door is opening now. Chosen one. Assignments are being activated. Blueprints are being unveiled. And your delay is about to make sense in the light of what's coming. The years that felt wasted were actually sacred seasons of calibration. God was making sure that when the door opened, you would be ready, not just in gifting, but in character, because you're not being called to a moment, you're being called to a mantle. And mantles don't come without fire. You've endured the fire. You've been misunderstood, misused, misread. You've questioned your own readiness. But heaven never questioned your identity. And now, the veil is thinning. The pieces are aligning. The scroll is stirring. And something deep in your spirit knows it. The time is now. This is the season where you stop waiting for permission and start walking in obedience. The confirmation has already come. The oil is already present. The fire is already burning. And the door? It's not coming. It's here. But this door won't be entered casually. It requires discernment. Because not every opportunity is divine. And not every platform is purpose. This is where everything you've learned in the silent seasons matters. This is where the wilderness wisdom kicks in. Because now, the world may start noticing, but only you know what it cost you to carry this quietly for so long. Move with clarity. Speak. When God says speak, build what heaven is breathing on. You are not creating from ambition. You are responding to alignment. You are not a self-made influencer. You are a spirit-led answer. This is where you walk in what you've carried alone for years. This is where private obedience becomes public release. And chosen one. If this word is hitting your spirit, if you feel the fire stirring, even now, don't scroll past it. This is not a motivational video. This is a divine confirmation. This is your scroll echoing back to you. So pause, take a breath, and receive it. If this word has reached you in a moment where you needed clarity, click that like button so it stays in your spirit. Share it with someone who's also been in delay. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. These aren't just messages, they're movement. And yes, if you feel led, if you sense the Lord stirring your heart, there are ways to sow into this. Not as a transaction, but as an act of agreement. A prophetic seed says, I believe this is my word, and I'm stepping into alignment. Let your seed speak what your words may not fully know how to say. Give only as the Spirit leads, never out of pressure, because what's being released here isn't manufactured, it's mantled. You're not sowing into a screen, you're sowing into your own atmosphere, into oil, into confirmation, into fertile ground where the Word of God is being released with fire and truth. Chosen one. The delay is over. The door is open. The assignment is active. And you are ready. Heaven didn't forget you. It was preparing to reveal you. Now walk boldly, in obedience, in clarity, in confidence. Because this isn't just your breakthrough season, it's your becoming season. And every step forward from here will echo with the sound of obedience fulfilled. You won't have to force it. Heaven will confirm it. The door didn't open to tease you. It opened to take you through. Walk in. This time, you're not just entering, you're being established. Chosen one. What looked like loss was never loss at all. It was training. You thought the wilderness was a punishment. Adetur. Adilei. But in truth, it was your proving ground. It wasn't designed to take you out. It was designed to build you up in ways comfort never could. You were never forsaken in that season. You were forged. The wilderness is the place where illusions die, where what's fake gets stripped, where what's weak gets exposed, and where what's real is revealed. And you, beloved, were not sent into the wilderness to wander. You were sent there to discover what could not be shaken. You didn't just survive that season. You emerged different, stronger, sharper, quieter in ego, louder in spirit. You began to walk differently, not because you were better, but because you were broken, and the wilderness has a way of doing that. It breaks what can't be carried and strengthens what must remain. When the applause faded, your faith had to become real. When the doors closed, your prayers had to go deeper. When the support vanished, you had to lean not on people but on God Himself. And in that sacred, stripped-down space, something holy was born, true dependence. You've seen God in ways only those who've been crushed can understand. You've heard Him whisper when no one else was speaking. You've watched Him provide, not out of surplus, but out of nowhere. That's not theory, that's testimony. That's what the wilderness creates. First-hand revelation. The prophet Elijah spoke as recorded in the first book of Kings, chapter 19, verse 12. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire, and after the fire, a still small voice. Oh, that's what you've learned. The voice of God isn't always thunderous, it's clear in the quiet. And you've come to know that voice. In the valley, in the dark, in the place where everything else was stripped away. This is why you can't be shaken the same way anymore. What used to frighten you now deepens your focus. What used to discourage you now activates your faith. You don't panic at closed doors, you discern. You don't fear silence, you search for whispers. You don't collapse in storms, you look for instruction in the wind. The wilderness matured you, and what felt like abandonment was actually an invitation into depth, into layers of trust you never knew existed, into revelation that can't be Googled, into intimacy with God that can't be taught from a platform, the kind of intimacy that comes only from fire. You no longer speak from opinion. You speak from overflow. You've learned the sacred language of scarcity, how to worship when there's nothing left. And that kind of worship terrifies the enemy, because it proves your praise isn't for sale. It proves your hope isn't circumstantial. And now, as you begin to exit that season, you may not even realize how much has changed. You're still adjusting to the strength you've built, to the vision you now carry, to the discernment that now walks ahead of you like a scout in the spirit. People may see you and think you've been quiet, but what they don't know is that silence doesn't mean stagnation. It means strategy. It means heaven's been moving pieces behind the scenes. It means God's been working on the infrastructure of your spirit so that what comes next doesn't crush you. Because here's the truth. The wilderness was never the destination. It was the in-between, a holy middle ground between what was and what's about to be. and those who pass through it well don't leave empty-handed. They leave carrying glory. You now carry what cannot be bought. Weight. Not the weight of anxiety, but the weight of assignment. Not the weight of pressure, but the weight of purpose. Not the weight of needing to be seen, but the weight of knowing you've been sent. You've been equipped in silence. You've been trained in obscurity. And though few saw what you endured, all will see the fruit of what was formed. So don't despise what you walked through. That dry land taught you how to dig wells. That lonely place taught you how to hear heaven. That hidden season taught you who you really are, not what people say, not what culture dictates, but what God revealed in the wilderness. And that version of you, the one who emerged from ashes, drenched in oil, burning with clarity, that version is ready. You're not going back. You're not waiting for a sign. You're not explaining your process to those who didn't walk it. You've been with God. That's enough. The wilderness may have looked like loss, but it was actually proof that you were never common, never random, never overlooked. You were being set apart for glory, chosen one. There is a weight to the call on your life, a sacred heaviness that not everyone can carry or even recognize. And yet, heaven placed it on you, not as a punishment, not as a test, but as a sign of trust. God trusts you with a mantle that would crush others. He trusts you with revelation that demands maturity. He trusts you with spiritual authority that provokes resistance. And He didn't choose you because you were perfect. He chose you because you were willing to yield. There's a reason your journey has felt heavy. The mantle doesn't just represent, calling it represents cost. The oil you carry wasn't handed to you in comfort. It was formed in crushing. You've bled in silence. You've served when no one clapped. You've obeyed when it hurt. And God saw every moment of it. Not one sacrifice was wasted. What's on your life cannot be faked. It cannot be copied. It cannot be stolen. You've been through too much to wear someone else's armor. You've learned how to walk with God when no one else walked with you. And that kind of history in the secret place gives you access that can't be earned in the spotlight. It is written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 3, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Len, that's the exchange happening over your life. The ashes you carried, heaven's turning them into beauty. The mourning that tried to silence you, it's becoming oil. The despair that almost drowned you, it's being replaced with garments of praise. That's what the mantle does. It doesn't just anoint you, it transforms you. But make no mistake, mantles carry weight. And while others may desire your oil, they don't know the warfare that came with it. You've been under pressure, not because you're weak, but because you're entrusted. The enemy has launched targeted attacks against you. Not because you're vulnerable, but because you're dangerous. Your presence irritates darkness. Your voice carries weight in the spirit realm. Your prayers break cycles. Your obedience unlocks atmospheres. You don't just enter rooms, you shift them. And not because of charisma, but because of consecration. You carry something the world didn't give you, and that means the world can't take it. But carrying a mantle also means living with awareness. You don't get to move like others. You don't get to hide in the crowd. You've been set apart, which means your convictions will often feel inconvenient. Your clarity will cost you connection. Your favor will sometimes isolate you. That's the price of glory. But take heart. This weight is holy. This burden is blessed. And heaven has not left you to carry it alone. You may feel the heaviness, but you're not carrying it in your own strength. You're clothed in grace. Heaven has assigned angels to uphold what you cannot. The Spirit of God is your sustainer. And even when you feel weary, you're still winning. This is not the moment to retreat. This is the moment to realign. To recognize that your mantle is not a curse, it's a call. It's a sign that you were chosen to carry what few are willing to lift. And if heaven trusted you with it, heaven will walk with you through it. So, yes, the mantle is heavy, but it is also holy. And if this word resonates with your spirit, if you know you've been carrying something weighty, something unseen, something sacred, then let your response be prophetic. Comment: 555. 5 is the number of grace. 555 is a divine reminder that you're not walking in your own power. You are graced for this. You are equipped for this. And you are not alone in it. Drop that number in the comments, not for show, but for alignment. Not to be seen, but to say, God, I receive the grace to carry what you've given me. And because chosen one, you were never called to collapse under the mantle. You were called to move in it, to pray through it, to lead with it, to release what only you can carry. Because this mantle is not just for you, it's for generations. What you carry will break things in your bloodline. What you release will unlock others behind you. This isn't just your assignment, it's your inheritance. And you will not fail what heaven entrusted to your name. Don't give up the crown. Chosen one. You are closer than you realize. Closer than you feel. Closer than the enemy wants you to know. That's why the warfare has intensified. That's why your thoughts have been under siege. That's why weariness has tried to wrap itself around you like a blanket. Because you are one decision away from stepping into something that shifts everything. There's a crown on your life, not a visible one, but a spiritual one, a symbol of authority, a marker of heaven's call, a declaration from God that says, "This one belongs to me." And the moment you stop fighting, the moment you surrender to the lie that says it's too late or too hard or too far gone, that's the moment the enemy reaches for what was never his to take. He can't steal your calling, but he can wear you down until you lay it down. You've been weary not just in body, but in soul, not just from the pressure, but from the loneliness of the path. Because carrying a crown means carrying weight, and not everyone understands what that means. People see your strength, but don't know the silent battles. They see your endurance, but not the tears behind it. They see your light, but not the shadows you've had to fight through just to keep it burning. You've thought about quitting not just once, but over and over. But something in you won't let you. Something won't let you settle. That's not stubbornness. That's calling. That's heaven pulling you forward when your flesh wants to collapse. And now, more than ever, you need to remember, the cost of compromise is always greater than the relief of giving up. As written in the letter of James, chapter 1, verse 12, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him." You're not just persevering for the sake of survival. You're holding on for something eternal, something that has already been promised. There is a crown of life reserved for those who don't fold under pressure, who don't forfeit in the fire, who don't allow temporary trials to sabotage eternal purpose. But this is where it gets real, because the most dangerous moment in a chosen one's life is not when they're being attacked. It's when they're being tempted to settle, to lower the standard, to silence the conviction, to abandon the process, not because of rebellion, but because of exhaustion. That's where many fall, not because they were weak, but because they were tired, too tired to resist, too tired to hope, too tired to keep showing up. And that is exactly why you must be alert now, because one compromised moment can undo years of obedience. One surrender to self can unravel what took heaven years to build in you. You are standing at the edge of breakthrough, at the edge of fulfillment, at the edge of prophetic promise. And this is when the enemy sends his best counterfeit, his smoothest lies, his easiest exits, not to destroy you instantly, but to distract you slowly. Don't trade your crown for comfort. Don't hand over your authority just to feel temporary relief. That pain you're carrying, it has purpose. That pressure, it's producing weight. That silence from heaven, it's not absence, it's assessment. God is watching to see. Will you still praise when you don't feel power? Will you still stand when no one's applauding? Will you still obey when it costs everything? You've come too far. You've been through too much. You've been marked too clearly to walk away now. Don't let the fatigue of the journey make you forget the reward of the finish. You were never meant to crawl across the line. You were meant to cross it crowned. So breathe. Chosen one. Pause. But don't quit. Cry. But don't collapse. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep moving. Keep praying. Keep showing up. Heaven isn't asking for perfection. It's asking for perseverance. And every step you take, every tear you release, every yes you give in secret is forming something in the spirit, a legacy. A weight, a testimony that will outlive this moment. This is not the end. This is the test before the release. The crown is still yours. Don't give it up now, because on the other side of this, obedience is not just breakthrough, it's the beginning of legacy. You're not just holding on for yourself, but for generations. There is a justice rising swift, divine, and undeniable. Heaven has not turned a blind eye to what you've endured. The wrongs done against you, the slander whispered behind your back, the betrayals you never saw coming, none of it was hidden from God. He saw it all. He recorded it all. And he has not forgotten. You stayed quiet when you could have defended yourself. You blessed those who cursed you. You forgave people who never apologized. You kept walking with integrity while others threw stones in secret. And while it looked like you lost, you were being elevated in the courts of heaven. Earth may not have seen your restraint, but heaven did. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was prophetic. Because every chosen one must walk through a season where loyalty is tested, where motives are exposed, where relationships are shaken. And though it broke your heart, it birthed your discernment. Though it hurt your name, it hardened your spirit in holiness. And now, the same God who watched you suffer in silence is preparing to answer loudly. The enemy thought he could discredit you. He thought he could use people to make you doubt yourself. He thought if he couldn't destroy you outright, he'd use friendly fire betrayal from those you loved to make you forfeit your assignment. But what hell miscalculated was your endurance. You didn't break. You bent. You wept. But you kept walking. God doesn't just see what's done to his chosen ones. He responds to it. In his time, in his justice. We read in the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 18. Yet the Lord longs to be gracious to you. Therefore he will rise up to show you compassion. For the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all who wait for him. Yes, he will rise. This is not revenge. This is vindication. The kind that doesn't just silence lies, but reveals truth. The kind that doesn't just punish wrong, but restores what was stolen. You've been sowing in tears, but you're about to reap in clarity. What was whispered in the dark is about to be exposed in the light, not for your ego, but for your release. Because here's the truth. Some things couldn't move forward until God judged what tried to hold you back. There were assignments that remained delayed because of the atmosphere around you, voices that had to be removed, environments that had to be shaken, masks that had to fall. And now, because you didn't take matters into your own hands, God is taking matters into his. He's clearing the air, clearing the way, making crooked paths straight, not just in your life, but in how people see your life. The very mouths that lied about you will witness your promotion. The very hands that tried to hold you down will see you lifted by God himself, and they won't be able to stop it. But this isn't just about personal vindication, it's about divine justice. Because what they did to you wasn't just against you, it was against the oil you carried. The dishonor wasn't just natural, it was spiritual. And God always defends what he anoints. Always. This is why you didn't need to fight back. Why you didn't have to respond to the rumors. Why you didn't have to clap back online. Because God is your defender. And when he answers, no one can argue. He will settle what you couldn't. He will speak what you stayed silent about. He will restore what they tried to bury. And when it happens, when his justice comes, it won't look like vengeance. It will look like peace. A peace that settles the score without saying a word. A peace that puts your spirit at rest. A peace that silences every voice that tried to shout over your destiny. So hold your head high. Chosen one. Not in arrogance, but in awareness. You're not forgotten. You're not discarded. You're defended. And soon, everyone will see it. The season of hidden hurt is giving way to a season of public healing. And heaven is not just healing your heart, it's healing your name. Not through argument, but through elevation. Because when God restores, Él restores completely. He restores with interest, with honor, with timing so precise. No one can deny his hand. What was lost will be returned, multiplied. What was broken will shine brighter. And what was mocked he will use as proof that his justice does not sleep. It rises. It redeems. It reigns. The world needs what you carry. You may not feel extraordinary. You may not even realize the weight of what's inside you. But make no mistake, heaven does. And hell does too. That's why your entire life has felt like resistance. That's why, even in moments of rest, you felt the pull, the tension, the pressure to stay sharp. You've carried the weight of something, even when you didn't have language for it. It's because you're not optional. You're essential. The world is groaning under the weight of darkness, confusion, and deception, and you are one of heaven's answers. You weren't just saved to survive. You were chosen to release something, to break something, to carry light into spaces that are spiritually suffocating. You carry what heaven deposited in you before the foundation of time. What you carry isn't random, it's remnant. You're part of a generation within a generation, a burning one, a disruptive one, a set-apart tribe that doesn't look for comfort but cries out for consecration. You were born to stir, born to awaken, born to carry weight that causes others to remember who they are in God. And because the world needs what you carry, the enemy has tried to convince you that you're irrelevant, that your voice doesn't matter, that you've missed too much, failed too often, waited too long. But that voice is not conviction, it's interference. The louder the resistance, the more powerful the release. You've been walking with a quiet fire. You've been serving in silence. You've been showing up while wondering if it even matters. And heaven wants you to know it does. What you think no one sees. God is multiplying behind the scenes. The apostle writes in Ephesians, chapter 3, verse 20, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, not above us, not around us, within us." That means what the world needs isn't out there, it's already inside you. The ideas, the creativity, the wisdom, the discernment, the compassion, the courage, it's been in you all along. You've just been too busy surviving to recognize it. But survival was only the first chapter. Now comes release. Chosen one. You carry the Spirit of the living God. That's not religious hype, it's reality. You carry the same power that raised Christ from the dead. And when you speak, atmospheres respond. When you move in obedience, chains break. When you walk into a space, alignment begins. Don't let small rooms make you think your impact is small. Don't let slow seasons make you believe your oil is dry. God has been storing your obedience like seed in the soil, and soon the world will see the bloom. And yes, it matters that you show up, that you write the book, that you launch the ministry, that you speak the word, that you love your family well, that you pray in secret, that you forgive the unforgivable. It all matters. Heaven sees every move, every seed, every surrender. So if this word has confirmed what your spirit already knows, don't let it pass in silence. Click like, so the algorithm pushes this to others who need it. Someone else is carrying weight right now, wondering if it matters, and your share might be their lifeline. And if you've been following these messages but haven't yet, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a moment of clarity and confirmation. And if your spirit is stirred, if you feel the nudge that this is your word, your moment, your reminder, then sow into it. Not out of pressure, but out of alignment. Sow where the oil is, because sometimes the act of sowing is your spirit saying, "I agree, I receive, I respond." Let your seed carry the sound of your yes. Comment, "I carry fire." Say it not for attention, but in alignment. You're not here to stay silent. You're here to shift the atmosphere. When you say it, the spirit realm hears your yes, and heaven responds. But more than all of this, believe it. Believe that what you carry is needed. Believe that your voice is still valid. Believe that your mistakes didn't cancel your mission. And believe that God is not finished using you. There are people assigned to your obedience. People who won't awaken until you speak. Rooms that won't shift until you show up. Chains that won't break until you pray. You're not just called, you're carrying something eternal. You've been trusted with fire, and now it's time to let it burn. Not in silence, but in purpose. Not for applause, but for awakening. The world is waiting, and heaven is watching you rise. There's a moment in every chosen one's life when things go quiet, not because you've done something wrong, but because heaven is holding its breath. It's the kind of silence that feels heavy, sacred, unexplainable. It's not absence, it's anticipation. That's the season you've stepped into. God has not gone silent to punish you. He has quieted the noise, so you can hear differently. In past seasons, you needed signs. Now, you need stillness. You used to require confirmation after confirmation. Now, He's teaching you to move with conviction, not from impulse, but from inner clarity, because the next season of your life cannot be led by emotions. It must be led by discernment. You've grown. You've matured. You've seen too much. You've come too far to let your flesh dictate what your spirit already knows. You know too much to turn back now. And that knowing, it was formed in the quiet. What you feel right now isn't distance, it's depth. And with that depth comes responsibility. You're not in a beginning phase anymore. You're in a birthing phase. And births require silence, focus, strength, pressure. They're painful, but they also prove that new life is imminent. That's what's happening in you. You're being stretched for something greater than what you asked for. The stretching is uncomfortable. It exposes what's still brittle. It reveals what was never rooted. It forces you to confront everything that was good for the last season, but cannot go with you into the next one. That includes mentalities, habits, even relationships. Because birthing doesn't just bring forth the new, it also requires the release of the old. So if you feel like you're being pulled apart, if you feel like you're unraveling, if it feels like everything familiar is being shaken, it's not destruction, it's transition. Heaven is shifting the weight from your shoulders to your spirit. You're no longer being led by what's visible. You're being aligned with what's eternal. That means what you feel right now may not always make sense, but it's doing a holy work beneath the surface. You're learning to walk in sync with the unseen, to trust the voice of God even when the room is silent, to recognize His breath in the stillness, as it is written in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 27. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. And that's exactly what you're doing. Following, not with full certainty, but with full surrender, not with perfect clarity, but with holy courage. This is a different kind of obedience. It's not loud or flashy. It doesn't come with applause or recognition. It's the kind of obedience that builds legacy silently. It's the foundation-laying kind. The kind that no one sees until it suddenly supports something massive, something undeniable, something that shakes the ground. And yes, it's hard. Yes, it's lonely. But chosen one, it's worth it. You've been trusted with a move of God that doesn't look like anything you've seen before. That's why you've had to walk alone. That's why you couldn't mimic others. That's why the old templates didn't work for you. You're not following a formula. You're following fire. And fire doesn't follow maps. It creates new territory. It clears what's dead and prepares the ground for something living. That's what your life is doing even now. Even when you don't see it. Even when you feel like nothing's moving. You are advancing in silence. And the ones who advance in silence often make the loudest sound when they arrive. Not because of volume, but because of weight. You will not need to announce yourself. The fruit will speak. The oil will drip. The atmosphere will shift. and those who once questioned your delay will marvel at your depth. So, if it's quiet, stay in the stillness. If it's hidden, embrace the mystery. Don't rush to be seen. Don't scramble for validation. You're not in hiding, you're in holy incubation. The world celebrates sudden success. Heaven builds with slow fire. And you, chosen one, are being built for longevity. Not virality, for impact. Not attention, for glory. Not gimmicks. You don't need to be loud. You just need to last. So rest your heart. Lean into the quiet. And remember, when God whispers, it's because He trusts you to hear Him clearly. You're closer than you think. And when it's time to move, you won't miss it. Until then, let peace be your posture and trust be your rhythm. Heaven's silence is never empty, it's strategic. Zophain and sacred. There's a remnant rising quiet in posture, fierce in spirit. You are part of it. This isn't about popularity. It's not about numbers or platforms or praise. This is about alignment, about a people who have been refined in secret, trained in obscurity, and anointed in crushing. A people who have died to ego so they can live in truth. A people who don't seek the stage, they seek God. You are not just called to believe, you are called to become. You weren't chosen so you could play it safe behind religion. You were marked to move in revelation. That's why your journey has been so costly. That's why the pruning never stops. That's why your standards are higher. Your convictions are deeper. Your atmosphere is more sensitive. Because what you carry is holy. The weight of that holiness will separate you. It will hurt sometimes. It will require distance. You will feel misunderstood, even by those closest to you. But the call is not for comfort, it's for glory. God is not looking for perfect people. He's looking for willing ones, surrendered ones, people who will say yes, even when it costs. People who will obey, even when it doesn't make sense. People who don't need the world's affirmation because they've already heard heaven's whisper. You've heard it. That quiet, yet unshakable voice deep in your spirit. The one that said, "You were born for more." The one that kept pulling you higher when everyone else was content to stay low. The one that didn't leave you alone, even when you tried to walk away. That voice is still speaking. We see in the second book of Chronicles, chapter 16, verse 9, "For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth, to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to Him." And when His eyes found you, they saw one fully committed, not perfect, but postured, not flawless, but faithful. And that's what heaven strengthens, the heart that stays aligned in both fire and favor. Chosen one. This is not the season to look back. What was is over. What didn't work doesn't need another explanation. The doors that closed were protection. The people who walked away were part of the pruning, and everything you thought was delaying you was actually delivering you into deeper surrender, delivering you into a life uncluttered by distraction, delivering you into clarity that cannot be stolen. You no longer need to chase what you once desired. You no longer have to explain why you've changed. You don't have to apologize for your discernment or hide your conviction to fit into spaces you've outgrown. You've evolved. This version of you doesn't need permission. This version of you doesn't need popularity. This version of you only needs presence, God's presence. Because the glory is coming, not fabricated glory, not manufactured hype, but weighty, undeniable glory that follows obedience. You're not just going to witness revival, you're going to carry it. You're going to walk into rooms and shift them, not because of your name, but because of His. And no, it won't always feel glamorous, but it will always be sacred. You'll have to make decisions that others won't understand. You'll walk paths that aren't crowded. You'll say no when it's easier to say yes. You'll be stretched again and again. But with every stretch comes capacity, and with capacity comes more glory. That's the exchange. The more you surrender, the more He entrusts. The more you die to self, the more He releases. The more you embrace the lonely road, the more others are awakened through your obedience. You are not called to fit in. You are called to stand apart. To live as a standard in a world that has lowered its bar, to carry a sound that cuts through noise, to walk in purity when compromise is easier, to stay lit when others burn out. So don't hold back anymore. Don't water down the fire. Don't second-guess the call. God is not asking you to be perfect. He's asking you to be present, to show up when it's hard, to say yes when it's quiet, to trust Him when the road is unclear. You have been chosen, set apart, prepared, sent, and now released. Go with fire. Go with faith. Go with the weight of glory resting on your shoulders, because everything behind you was preparation, and everything in front of you is purpose. Walk in it boldly. You are not late. You are not small. Heaven has waited for this version of you to emerge, and now the earth will witness what heaven already knew. Chosen one, you have journeyed through truths that echo in heaven's courts and resound deep within your spirit. What you've heard is no accident, it is divine orchestration. You were never left to wander alone, never abandoned to doubt, and never designed for anything less than extraordinary. Every word, every promise, every stirring was sent to remind you, you are God's masterpiece. The fire in your soul is not to be quenched, but to be fueled. Your calling is not a suggestion, it is a decree. And though the path has been challenging, every step has crafted you for glory. Now is the time to rise, not quietly, but boldly, to walk in your identity with confidence and humility, to embrace your mantle with grace and strength. You carry a legacy that will outlast generations, and a light that darkness cannot overcome. If this message has stirred something within, do not keep it to yourself. Like this word, so it remains in your spirit. Share it with those who need encouragement and clarity in their own journey. Let your testimony become a beacon for others who are still searching. Comment, your words matter. Speak them in faith. Let your voice be heard as a declaration of alignment and awakening. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to continue walking in the flow of divine revelation and empowerment. Stay connected to this community of warriors and watchmen, all chosen for this pivotal hour. If you feel moved to support this ministry, sow a seed, not out of obligation, but as an act of spiritual agreement, planting into the harvest of souls being awakened and the fires being rekindled. Your giving carries a prophetic weight and unlocks blessings beyond measure. Remember, chosen one, your journey is ordained, your destiny assured, and your crown awaits. Walk forward with boldness. Heaven is backing you every step of the way.